to Playwright, a podcast about creating and sharing brand new ways to play. This is our audio game jam where we pitch games to you, and then, if you like them, you're obligated to make them into full AAA titles. So, just take that in mind before you listen further. It's an expensive proposition.
I was going to promise the listeners that there would be no edutainment shoot 'em ups this time, but I can't make any guarantees.
Well, in that case, I'm going to have to promise him that there's not going to be any kind of like city building simulation games from you. So
it's true. Yeah, absolutely.
Anyways, my name is Ryan Hamann. You may call me H.
I am Ryan Quintal, and for no particular reason, you can call me Q.
I know that you're a huge Apple fanboy.
It's true. I went all the way to the trouble of working for the company for a year.
Presumably, you have one of those new, is it an iPhone X or an iPhone 10? Because I can't remember between that and the Xbox.
Well, yeah, no kidding. Let me iron it out for any listeners. It is the iPhone 10, pulling from that legacy. It is not only the 10th anniversary of iPhone, but it is pulling from Mac OS X, which people always called it is really OS 10.
Is it?
Yeah.
Oh, man.
Yeah, so you've been maybe saying it wrong. Well, you know what I love about this? I don't know if you do this too, H, but when I get a new phone, it kind of re-sparks my interest in games and apps, especially, mobile games that look nice. And I have found one in this game called Inks. It is a game by the people that made some other games. You may have heard of them. One of them is called Lumino City. One of them is called Kami.
Right.
Yeah. So they do a lot of really cool, beautiful games. And this one is a little bit more arcadey, which I love. And it's a arcade pinball game where you kind of hit the ball around and you have to make it follow certain curves in the level to fill those spaces with ink. It almost seems like a game we would pitch on our show. But yeah, it's really beautiful. If you get a chance to check it out, and it's not free to play, it is like $2 or something, and you get the whole game. I know it's a sin to pay $2 for a mobile game these days.
I don't mind that.
No, me neither. So it's really great. You should check it out.
Well, it's good to know that you're testing out your brand new 2017 iPhone in the same way that I tested out my Windows 95.
It's true.
I need to load pinball.
Yeah, I got to get some solitaire on this bad boy and I'll be all set.
Anyways, let us bring some brand new video game pitches to the mix. Q, it is your turn to start us off this week.
Well, I know city sims and shmups are the thing we've been doing lately, but I'm going to reach back into the Playwright well and go for a music game and a fighting game at the same time. So I have a musical fighting game for you where you actually play celebrity deathmatch style as famous music artists throughout history that represent their genres respectively. Maybe those can be classes of characters. And they all have special moves, Mortal Kombat style, based off of their hit songs, albums, and shticks. So, for example, I have a couple plotted out here. Taylor Swift has Bad Blood, which cuts you and you take damage over time. Wildest Dreams dazes the opponent. Shake It Off as a teleportation attack.
I see.
Ozzy Osbourne has a Crazy Train. Bark at the Moon summons bats, and Shot in the Dark makes the whole screen dim and you have to kind of fight unseen. But the little extra spin that I think could be interesting that I want to put on this is every match is 3 minutes, and as opposed to having health bars, you're going to do a sort of points based off of the damage that you're able to give to the other character. And the 3-minute match is broken down into 6 distinct parts, 30 seconds each, that are verse, chorus, bridge, chorus. And so during the verse, it's kind of a normal fighting game. Maybe you have access to special moves, maybe you don't. Then during the chorus, special moves do double damage. So it becomes a part where, people are literally throwing their hit moves at each other. And then during of course, you do that twice. And then you have the bridge, where every time you repeat an attack, it's actually worth less than it was previously. So you're encouraged during a bridge, just like you are in a song, to mix it up and keep it fresh and original, and then return finally with the big damage dealing chorus at the end. So it's kind of a fighting game with a weird format for matches, and all wrapped up in a musical presentation. So that's my pitch.
All right, cool. We are starting the metronome now. That's interesting. I would want, if you could play as Geddy Lee and get a 21-minute match.
I love that.
It's a special thing. But anyways, one of the things that this makes me think of immediately is Def Jam Icon, which I played a lot of. I know that Def Jam Vendetta and Fight for New York are generally the ones in the series that are well-liked. Icon was kind of overlooked. Didn't draw as much attention as the previous two, and I think it kind of let some people down, series fans down, on some of the promise that had going into it, because it had a really weird form of fighting that was taking after, I think it was Fight Night Round 3, that used more of the kind of motions the right and left stick to throw punches instead of the button combinations like you'd expect from the kind of Street Fighter, Mortal Kombat line of fighting games. One of the things that really stood out about Icon was that you were playing as a musical artist, of course. You were playing against another musical artist, and you would each have a song that would play during the fight, and whoever song was playing kind of took control of the match. But you can hold down one of the triggers and go into like turntable mode, and then using the two thumbsticks, you would turn the other person's music down, and then when that's muted, you can turn your music up. So you need a few moments while the other person's like on the ground or something, but you could shift the music into your favor. And then that does a few things. It gives you an advantage as far as like damage that is given when your music is playing. And also the environmental hazards are kind of timed to the beat. And so if you know the song, then you can get a better like sense of where those hazards are going to come through at the kick lines or whatever. And so having both of the songs playing and having this kind of battle, this tug of war between the two songs was an interesting dynamic there. And I can see that definitely working in a game like this as well.
Yeah, we've talked about a couple times now in the show. I think we both have an affinity for things that mash up music and mix music together. So I could especially see, as the tide of a battle turns more in one person's favor, having that music come in or influence the stage music. Maybe every stage has a generic track that plays, and then an artist can kind of pull the stage music more into one style or the other.
Yeah, and one of the things you were saying is that you'd be drawing from kind of musicians throughout history. And that got me really interested, because I've always wanted like one of those really lavishly animated like anime fighters, but based on like historical figures. So like Abraham Lincoln and, Cleopatra and Mozart and all these people. And I was thinking like, oh, cool. You have like Tchaikovsky, John Lennon, and all these, figures throughout history, Michael Jackson, all kind of bashing together. But then you started naming people who are still alive, which is cool, but it might make it a little bit more difficult to like realistically like license out the people.
Yeah, and get permission and things.
Yeah, but it could also be cool. But then if the people are like modern enough to know where they're not in the public domain anymore, then you have to worry about like the estate and whether they want their image to be used in that way, if they're dead or if they're alive or whatever. That could be a additional challenge if you're going down that route. Although I would have loved to finally have a fighting game where I can play as Weird Al Yankovic.
Oh my God, the accordion moves would all be so good.
And make them all eat it.
I totally get what you're saying, and I do agree that like I hadn't considered reaching back into history, but I do in my head. I know Def Jam always went for the realistic graphics route, quote unquote realistic, right? Stylized, but more true to who the people actually were. Where I do like the idea of these people looking more like Street Fighter characters or exaggerated. It's funny, caricatures and stuff. I used to love Celebrity Deathmatch on MTV back in the day just to see the ridiculous pairings. And I think that there's probably a good group of people who would be attracted to a game where Kanye West and Taylor Swift could actually fight.
Especially if it kind of used that same celebrity deathmatch kind of claymation style.
Yeah.
Because that's been kind of absent from fighting games, at least since Clay Fighter, and from video games as a whole. Like, it's been off and on, but it's not been really notably used probably since Kirby on the Wii U.
Yeah. And I was also thinking about the presentation wrapped around this. I think there's a lot of fun with stages. In this fantasy land, we can license whatever we want, but I love the idea of a stage being the American Idol stage, or the Dancing with the Stars stage, and having, like, at the end of a fighting match, these weird virtual judges that are, announcing the scores in favor of one person or another, or the voice cast where like Shang Tsung in the background of Mortal Kombat kind of sitting in his throne watching, you have the judges slowly turning their chairs based on who's winning a match.
Yeah. As long as I get to beat up Adam Levine in the final round, I'm okay with that.
Yeah, I think one of the popular trends in most games, sport or pretty simple games these days, is to add in a story/single player mode, especially in fighting games. So I'm curious as to where we think there could be a story here.
This could be really fun if you take it in an like Injustice Gods Among Us direction, where all of these musical artists have to like team up as like semi superheroes to save the world from some sort of like encroaching presence.
Yeah, exactly. And then you have, that actually could you imagine a tag team situation where like you have famous duet partners or bandmates getting together?
A real Marvel versus Atlantic Records situation.
Absolutely.
So you want this to be a music fighting game as well. Is there going to be any consideration for the beat or kind of keeping in time with the music?
I wasn't necessarily thinking that, but I wonder if there could be key moments and times where if the stage is really structured verse chorus, bridge chorus, then you could do things where during those phase changes, maybe certain courses have, or the courses have a certain song, and when the song is doing particular moments or hitting certain keys or beats, those are times to do like some dramatic stage destruction type of moves.
That would be really cool in the kind of transitions between the major moments in the song, or right before the bass drops or whatever, or it shifts into slow motion when the instruments drop out of like 21st Century Schizoid Man or something like that. It'd be really neat.
I'm not a marketing team, but in terms of, quote, going viral, I do really want the ability to like export GIFs or something from this, because I think people are going to love seeing, like Adele and, Taylor Swift, punch each other and really go at it. And those type of things, I think, people have musical rivalries. I don't know about you, but certainly when I was younger, I think I was more, I guess to use the term, militarized about what kind of music I liked, of like, oh, I don't like country music or whatever. Where, the older I get, the more open-minded I am to that stuff. I definitely think this would be a fun game to settle rivalries with friends, is, assuming the characters are, quote, balanced or whatever.
Okay, so here's a pitch for the final boss of the story mode. So all the time you're leading up to this giant battle against like one of the real legends of music, whether it's like Dizzy Gillespie or Beethoven or Dr. Dre or somebody that's like seems important and imposing. But then right in the middle of like the final fight, or right before you deliver that kind of knockout punch, Rick Astley swoops in. And turns out he's the final boss.
How could you not sell Rick Astley as DLC? He could literally, all of his moves just be parts of Never Gonna Give You Up. Like, give you up, let you down, all of those. Let you down.
Very violent song if you break it down.
Yeah, that's right. Run around and hurt you. So that is actually the most devastating.
Well, anyways, we're out of time on that one. Do you have a name for this musical fighter?
Let's go with something like Platinum Record.
How about Platinum Wrecker?
Oh, Platinum Wrecker is the name. Yes, it is.
All right. I will pitch something now. All right, so this is partly inspired by, I believe it's Shadow of the Damned that had this particular feature, although I might be wrong about that. But what I'm thinking of is there's a particular shooter, it might be Shadow of the Damned, where if you die, basically your body explodes and then your head gets like blown off and you can roll around and try to like regroup with your body to kind of, that's how you revive yourself.
Oh, okay.
And if it's not Shadows of the Damned, I would encourage anyone to tweet us. Let me know what it is, because it's going to drive me crazy otherwise. But it's just kind of moments of helplessness. It's almost like going into the morph ball with Samus. A different control scheme and you're vulnerable and you just have to find your body again so you can get back to shooting. But also there's a game called Headlander that is kind of a similar thing, but in a more like 2.5D setup, produced by Double Fine last year. And also inspired by although I'm not a fan of the TV show, the kind of Pickle Rick thing that's been going around, the Rick and Morty sketch.
Yes.
But basically my idea is that you play like a head or like a brain in a jar or something like that, and you are fairly underpowered, but you can roll around these like shooter levels, and as you kill more creatures, you can like take pieces of them and attach them to your body in various ways, and as you attach them, then you kind of like evolve into a more dangerous life form. And you get to play, kind of Spore style. It figures out the legs and arms and the different pieces that you attach to yourself. You can attach weapons and blades and, projectiles or whatever, all kind of organically based. But basically you're just trying to kill things so you can get stronger, level up, almost like the progression system in Flow. Or those .io games where you can float around this screen and eat things that are smaller than you until you get bigger, then you can eat the things that are slightly bigger and such. So, just kind of Katamari a whole bunch of different creature pieces to you and become more deadly and defeat your foes. So, I'll start the clock on that.
Well, you are a few weeks late for Halloween. This would have been a good one. But you know what? I love it. And I immediately started thinking about, it would be super fun to, let's say each of those body parts or each of the things you attach to yourself maybe has some level of independent health or damage it can take. Yeah. Like you see a suit of armor in an RPG, sometimes they show, just your shield is broken or just your, helmet is broken. And those things can fall off. That kind of encourages you to continuously be attaching yourself to new weird things.
Yeah, I could see this working well in kind of a Dark Souls-like combat system where it's more about like blades and physical attacks rather than guns and stuff, because it's a lot more interesting if you can more precisely slice rather than just shooting kind of willy-nilly in any direction.
Yeah, and I like the idea of it almost controlling like a Katamari or a vehicle, where the sort of larger you become, the more unwieldy you are to move around.
Yeah, this could even work in a multiplayer situation as well. If you all start out as kind of humans, essentially, or maybe something a little bit less than humans, then as you kill each other, then you can, throw on a leg or something like that, or an extra... everything has both offensive and locomotive capabilities.
Yeah, that's cool, because you can then build your character to be like, I'm going to just go for the fast route, and maybe the only thing you can do in your head other than kind of roll, bounce, and maybe, I guess, bite, and sort of slowly nod things, but you decide to build your character of like, I'm going to attach 15 legs and I'm going to be able to spider around really quickly, and then just kind of slowly gnaw away at my enemies, where somebody else is like, I'm just going to be all fists and be slow, but I'll be able to crush things, I guess.
So one of the things that I'm kind of debating is how I want to do the limb attachment. I'd like it if I could get as detailed as I could in a Spore Creature Creator and really pay a lot of attention to where I place the limbs, and then the game can kind of procedurally figure out how something like me would move. But at the same time, if this is like a fast-paced action game, I don't want to distract from the action, so maybe also giving the option to kind of quickly go over a limb and just the game's AI can attach it for me somewhere.
I would like to think about, I know sometimes we go for changing up the ideas here, but what if you frame this all under a very sweet story where you are kind of a zombie that is trying to reunite with their former partner, and they are going level by level in a story, kind of reassembling their body, right? Or borrowing bodies from, perhaps new places where they ever might source those. And the end of the game, you're almost like trying to be the best, most beautiful version of yourself to impress this person or to get them to fall in love with you again.
Yeah, what would be interesting is if each level there was one part of your partner's body. And, at first you're just okay, I'll just rip my own leg off and stick her leg on, and then I'll be good to go. But then by the end of the game, you've left all of your pieces behind. You've kind of replaced yourself little by little as you bring the partner's parts, body parts, to wherever you're depositing them. And, it gets to that question of how many times can you patch a sock before it becomes another sock, before there's no more of the original sock and it's all patches anymore.
Yeah, this is also inspiring me. Mario came out recently, so that's on the top of the brain. And one of the coolest and a little bit funny and also sad mechanics in Mario is the Goombats that are in all the levels. And I like the idea of Mario has to kind of possess a Goomba to get this Goombat to fall in love with him or whatever. But a weird body Cronenberg version of that is maybe there are all sorts of different creatures that you're trying to talk to or form relationships with or gain favor from, and you have to assemble your body into many different things over the course of whatever levels to okay, I need to make allies with this thing, but it speaks a little bit that it's only going to talk to me if I look or move a certain way.
Yeah, I could see something like this working in an Oddworld type of aesthetic where you have all these strange alien race creatures around. And as you kill some of them, then you can take some of their body parts and attach them. And if you attach them into roughly the right spots on your body, then you look enough like one of them to where the others will help you out.
Yeah, so many games let you just equip, Diablo famously. You can put on gloves and rings and helmets. You might as well just make those body parts. I mean, so many games now will let you sever the limbs of your enemies. Might as well use those things. Use every part of your enemy.
Yeah, exactly. There could be some sort of a social element to this as well. You're trying to blend into these different environments, almost using the Hitman social stealth or Devil May Cry prototype, or not Devil May Cry, Destroy All Humans. That's what I was trying to say.
Yeah.
Type of social stealth where you are blending into these different groups and working your ways to their leaders or whatever and assassinating as you go. But also, maybe alternatively, you could just kill all the biggest and badass creatures and, get all of these most dangerous parts and just slice through these enemy camps and not have to worry about diplomacy.
I like going, when you talk about the Oddworld aesthetic, one of my favorite things in that game is the sort of sewn together mouth that I think Abe has.
Yeah.
And I could see that being literally you having points on your chest or body, your torso, that you're kind of just sticking things on and off. And there could even be really cool story moments where you do get to inhabit or become a very large creature, and you're just a kind of a small little homunculus in a larger being. And then, so really playing with scale from very, very large all the way down to small.
It'd be interesting to really consider, like, where does the self live in this creature? Would you have to always keep your head? Could you attach another head, and what would that do to like your sense of autonomy and movement and control and everything? Could you attach your head to a different body and have different capabilities that way? And would you be able to find your old body if you left that behind somewhere?
I wonder if you could have something, you can level up so often now. I wonder if you could have something where the more you level up, the more sort of attach points you have on your torso, or you can allow yourself to attach more things or become an even more complex creature as you accomplish tasks and missions and levels.
As you attach your head to different torsos, they have different like arrangements of spots where limbs could be. You can just stick them in different spots, and that might help you in different scenarios.
Yeah, that's what's so great about the creature creator. Whereas like if you put a leg on the front of a creature, you're really just attaching a generic limb, and the game is deciding, I think this is an arm. Maybe it's a system where you have to defeat a particular, like say if you're just a head, you have to defeat a particular type of enemy in order to get their body that has a certain number of attach points. And then you keep basing, you have a base of your head, and then off of that, the secondary level is like what the torso is, and then how many limbs and weird stuff you can attach to that.
It's like the health system. When you're a head, you're pretty much like one shot from being killed. But there's a pretty common supply of like essentially just chickens or something around that you can pretty easily, even as a head, kill and take their body. And that at least gives you, some more level of freedom that you can use to take down a bigger enemy, and either take their limbs and attach them to the chicken body, or take their body and search for bigger limbs or something.
This is actually making me really wanted to have the Seaman aesthetic, where you're just a like very boring generic dude's face, always looking kind of bored, but just on an ever, growing and perhaps horrifying creature is very funny to me.
Yes, and voiced by the main voice actor from Deadly Premonition as well. We will insist on that. Anyways, that's enough time spending talking about that one. I don't necessarily have a name, but let's see if we can come up with something.
Like ahead of the game, or some pun.
Of Splice and Men.
Oh my God. All right. I'll let you have it if you want it.
Well, I don't really, but you know what? Let's just go on to our community submission. That we'll have to do.
Okay, fair enough.
I'm okay with that.
This is a good opportunity to remind the community that they can write in at playwrightcast.com or playwrightcast@gmail.com and come up with better names for everything we do. Please, that would be helpful.
And while you're there, you can submit your own idea. We will read it here on the air. We just have a couple left as of the time of recording. So we're going to put out another call on Twitter, but we would encourage you, go ahead and hop in and submit your own. It will be read very soon.
Yes.
So I like the first line of this one already. I've read ahead a little bit, and it makes me very happy. I'm really excited to get to the rest of it. This comes from Sam Quirke at Kentaris, who says, inspired by a spooky trip to Scotland that I took over Halloween, you play as a ghost haunting the village in which you used to live. Your one quest, resolve whatever unfinished business is keeping you from moving to the afterlife in peace. I imagine this quest to be randomly assigned for a different experience each playthrough, different end goals, and different conditions to reach them. All will involve interacting with the villagers in some way. Here's the kicker. You have a limited amount of energy keeping you in this limbo, and it's always slowly ticking down. You get an energy top-up anytime you actively haunt the villagers, but the more you spook them, the more you increase the risk of being hunted by a local scientist obsessed with trapping ghosts and experimenting on them. However, the lower your energy bar gets, the more you attract the attention of the underworld. the village takes on a hellish aspect and ghostly demons start to pursue you in order to drag you to a realm of eternal torment. If either the scientist or the demons catch up to you, it's game over. You must carefully balance your interaction with the world in order to avoid either fate, finish your last quest, and escape to a happier afterlife. Well, very interesting. I like this one a lot. Of course, anything ghosty is going to get me. So this one strikes me as kind of a mashup between Haunt the House Terror Town, which is a 2D game, a really cute art style, but really, I mean, as much as I like this kind of thing specifically, I didn't really get on with the gameplay that much. I found it a little unpredictable and not super satisfying, but you play this ghost kind of zipping between rooms in this kind of like dollhouse cutaway of a house. And you could possess various objects and just try to like, you know, shake them about and scare whoever's in the room. And you get more points based on people being scared by what you do. And then also Murdered Soul Suspect, where you play in a 3D environment. You play the ghost of this guy who got killed and you're trying to investigate who killed you. It's kind of a investigative, you're trying to find out what happened in your last moments of life, which is what I get from this as well. Like I get from this idea that the ghost has kind of lost their memory in the death process, and you're trying to just figure out what you need to do to settle your unfinished business and take care of that so you can move on.
I'm interested in figuring out, because I tap into this well too of random generation, what a run of this game feels like. Do you imagine that this is third person? Do you imagine this is a first person experience? Like, how am I haunting people?
I kind of pictured this as like a Hitman type thing where it's like third person. You can walk around this big map and essentially just, you can phase in and out of various objects. There's probably some aspect of don't get detected if you're not inside, like possessing an object. You can move anything that you possess to spook whoever's around you. Again, those balances of you don't want to spook people too much because then the scientists will get called in and you don't want to take too long because the demons will come and try to drag you to hell, so to speak.
Yeah, I like the idea of multiple playthroughs, and I don't necessarily feel like any one session should be too long. I think the amount of time that a, say, Grand Theft Auto mission takes, complete with the cop chase that usually ensues and the wanted level, because that's to me what the world pushing back usually feels like in these things, like the whether it's the underworld or it's the scientist. It's kind of scary that they're coming at you from all angles as a ghost, but the way that things slowly escalate, maybe the scientist only poses a certain level of threat, and it's really the underworld that is the quote-unquote more threatening threat, if that makes any sense.
I think the way that I would prefer to do this particular game is, instead of it being entirely randomly generated, I would want to structure it kind of like Hitman, where you have, let's say it's all just like one like big open world town. And I like this kind of Scotland, Northern England type of setting, that kind of countryside village, but not completely rural. It's a big enough civilization to where it doesn't feel like you're in a ghost town. I mean, well, technically you are.
You can only ever be in a ghost town.
But anyways, I would want maybe like 6 or 7 main story missions that take you through like 7 different ghost stories that are like really well-crafted narratives that focus on different parts of town. And so you could have one that's in the farm that's outside the town gate. You'd have one that's in the lighthouse, one that's in the, town square, and you have to kind of like go between buildings to try to find out what your character wanted. And you can get a really like fine crafted narrative with voice acting and with solid narrative details about your character's story, as with Hitman. I don't remember what they're called, the escalating missions or whatever, those using the same space and using the same NPCs and the same like everything to just give you more of like a sit down and play through a quick session type of game as well. Like once you're done with the story, you can revisit this open world town and play through these kind of randomly generated missions as well. And then maybe even giving the community the opportunity to write their own stories, to kind of define who a person was while they were alive, what they want, where you want them to start. You can like write notes and leave props and stuff behind that give clues as to who this person was. So you can really kind of like craft your own ghost stories as you go using these environmental details.
I was first, when Sam was describing this, thinking of it in my head of a Battlefield 1-esque sort of person-by-person montage that is taking you through these people's lives or their experiences and their retellings of something. But I think I might feel like there's more to do mechanically, and there's more I'll sort of swallow narratively if this feels a little bit more like a Fable game. Maybe we frame the whole thing as there's some sort of big factory collapse or some ship that sinks in the sea, and you are now playing, the 10 people that were on that ship, or, some controlled amount, 8 people left in the factory that didn't get out, and you're going and you're seeing their homes. But I think if you make it a little bit more friendly, then it'll be more fun to do ghost things, like whether it's wearing a sheet or blowing out candles or rattling things.
So you think
and making
that
sounds.
A sinking ship or a collapsing factory is your way to make this more friendly?
No, I'm sorry. That's like how the people perish, right? Let's make our people all perish from the same thing.
Okay.
And then so they all die at once. That's the reason why we're playing all their ghosts in kind of a row, if that makes sense. And then you can use that framing of, well, they were all different people from different places, in this town. And here's the story about maybe how they all ended up on that ship, right? They could all tie back into that.
That's true. Although I feel like if you're playing as ghosts already, then they all have in common kind of one important like aspect of their narratives, and that's that they're all dead. And that's a huge kind of like a turning point in somebody's life. And I feel it would be kind of a shame to not use that as kind of the crux of the mystery. If everyone died on a ship, then then that mystery is solved. You know how they died. And of course, there are aspects of their life, kind of Edith Finch style, that you can look back on. And that could be interesting. But if this is a more kind of investigative focus game, then I feel like it would make the most sense for the mystery to be, how did I die? Who killed me? Or did I, what kind of business did I leave behind?
Wow, you saying you killed me is a cool angle to take on this. If these were, I hate to keep returning to the well if they all die in a similar way, but if these are all victims of the same, Jack the Ripper type character, and the game focusing around haunting people with all of them to find out who the killer actually is and somehow get that person caught, is kind of fun.
It could be like a linking factor, is that you play like a medium who's working with the police or something like that.
Yeah.
And you are contacting all of these ghosts and kind of going into one of your trances and reliving aspects of their life, trying to, almost like Assassin's Creed, like go back into their genetic memories and find out how they died.
What do you think we can do for hauntings? I made some allusions to making noises or blowing out candles, that sort of thing. What kind of, known fictional ghostly powers are there at our disposal here?
I think it'd be a really clever move, and I don't think I've seen this done before, but if you get like a better scare for creating a sense of dread and suspense before you release the big like jump scare, there's all sorts of objects that you can possess, and you can make the piano start playing itself or whatever, and that's a jump scare. That's like the prestige, so to speak. But you could also, if there's somebody in the room, while trying to stay out of sight of them, you could blow out a candle or open a window or just do all these things to like increase the sense of dread, and their movements, their animation starts to change. And so when you release the jump scare, instead of them getting annoyed and ignoring it, or instead of them just like running out of the room, maybe they'll like pass out if you get like the best jump scare, if you set it up and then knock it over.
Yeah, I think that would be cool. Like prompting people the same way in Hitman, you can turn off lights or shoot down a stage or cause a panic in a way that elicits the response that you need, whether that's a distraction or to actually, if I could only get enough people to try and leave this building, like I know it would maybe solve a physics thing for me or something.
Each NPC could have this kind of invisible meter that's attached to them. That's like a level of tension or fear or something that they're feeling. And so everything that you do can make the tension or the fear go up or down. And that would make them more or less easy to scare. And that would be a clever mechanic. But I think we talked too much about this one already. You give us a ghost idea and we're going to be here for half an hour. You have to expect that.
Yeah, we need it. We need these ghosts in our lives.
Sam Quirke came to us with a name for this one, and I think it'll do. I like it. He calls it Before I Go.
That's very good, Sam.
Yeah, it's not bad. Well, anyways, if you, the listener, would like to pitch a game just like Sam did today, then you can go over to our website. That is playwrightcast.com, where you can find the pitching portal right there on the main page, or you can just go to playwrightcast.com/pitch to go straight to that entry field. Or you can email us playwrightcast@gmail.com or tweet us at playwrightcast. We are playwrightcast anywhere you can find us. That is PLAYWRITECAST.
Special thank you to PROTODOME for the use of our theme song, Hello World, off of his album Blue Noise. It's really good, and you can get to it from our website or his Bandcamp.
Well, that is our show for today. Q, why don't you take us out with a little nugget to chew on?
Resident Evil 4 meets Boom Blocks.
I don't even know what that would be. Well, that's why it's fun to think about.
That's right. It would be Game of the Year is what it would be.
Potentially. Steven Spielberg's Resi Blocks. All right, we'll see you next week.
Bye.